Can you see, Vicki? Are you okay?
Yeah, sure.
And,
Right behind my head. You guys want me to move in any way? No?
You can block me, Angie.
No, my goal is actually to not block you.
She's trying to duck
Nice
it.
try.
I prefer my radio.
Yep.
I need to put a name to
Does it help?
Yeah, Jason, does the nose piece help?
It did, but like the first day I put it on, it fell off before the day was done.
Oh, because it kind of bent a little bit more?
I probably had some.
Okay, ready?
That's
I
okay.
just stick a paper clip in
Oh, there you go.
That sounds
there. Okay, you
better.
may call to orders.
Do you want me to wait for the Zoom to connect?
I want to clear.
Here's somebody on there.
That is us.
That was us, or just his leg?
Go ahead.
Okey doke. So we'll call the meeting to order. It's 4:04. The mission statement, the Viroqua School District provides a quality education for all students that inspires continuous learning, positive relationships, curiosity, and compassion in an environment that welcomes diversity while developing respectful and responsible citizens. Proof of public notice per Wisconsin statutes. Notice of the special meeting was posted on Wednesday, August 26, 2020 per Town Burkhalter District Administrator. I would like a motion indicating the result of notice being posted. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vicki. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Do we have the other board members on there yet?
No. You've got 4.
I have 4. I would really like to have more, if possible. They're not there. Okay. With that, discussion, action, appointments. Is there a motion to approve the appointments of VAM's Children's House Kelsey Goodman, VAM's E2 Assistant Mary Redinger, Server Custodian Linda Jurachik, JV Basketball, Girls Basketball Chris Brzezinski, 8th grade Girls Basketball Riley Adding, Middle School Cross Country Brandon Lee, and Football Assistant Adam Stenner. Is there a motion to approve the appointments? Motion by Amanda, second by Kim. Any discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Substitute teacher compensation. Motion to approve the substitute teacher compensation. Pardon me?
Cross country assistant, cross country now.
This says middle school cross country. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that.
No, they know. If whatever they're telling you it is, they're right.
Right, but
Right,
I read, we approved middle school. So
Yep.
is there a motion?
You can just, the person that made the motion can just make the correction.
I think Amanda made the
Yep.
motion.
And I'll second that.
Assistant cross country, not middle school. Do
Okay.
we need an all voting again? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
To the amendment, aye. Opposed, motion carries. Substitute teacher compensation. Motion to approve the substitute teacher compensation to $120 a day as recommended by the compensation committee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kim, is there a second? Second by Amanda. Any discussion? Kim, can you give me a little bit?
Well, we looked at all the compensation in the area and everything, and other people hadn't really done anything this year, but Mike had data and so forth, and we haven't moved it for a couple of years, so especially now it made sense to move that up. And Mike have other districts now.
I haven't heard anything
Anything,
more,
but
but
I know-
I've been reading in the state news and stuff that others have looked at it. Now, the one was Beloit, and they were at the 120 that we are going to.
Right.
But I mean, so yeah, they didn't actually even say in there what they went.
I think they're looking into it, but I haven't heard anything official, but I know the superintendents were asking me over the last 2 weeks what our thoughts were.
I had heard our neighboring district was curious to where we were going.
Do we have, what was it before? Prior?
105.
105, so from one, okay. all that. Any other discussion? And I assume this was built into the budget already, Mike?
Yes.
All righty. With that, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the 2020-2021 District Staff Handbook and Pandemic Addendum. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Kim, second.
Second.
Second by Vicky. Any discussion? In reading through it, there was some bold in the district staff handbook that was not there because it was different. Everything, just like it says in here, everything is the same in the district staff handbook. The only changes are the pandemic addendum.
I would say there are slight changes to and the Title IX procedures in there,
Sure.
but those are really, those
No.
are only to,
And that was approved by the policy.
and that was approved by the
Correct.
policy that you did at our last board meeting. Yep.
So the policies are referenced here, so, and they're current. So the policies are still numbered the same, but the policy may have changed, which has already been approved by the board. Is that
Yep.
clear as mud?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you need to, click right on the links and it'll take you there.
Okay, and the only other question that I had, which you had already shared, is that those new policies are going to be shared with the staff.
Mhm.
With
And,
that,
yeah, and they have that, yep.
that's already happened? did you
Yes.
say?
Mhm.
Perfect. Any other discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item is motion to approve the 2020-2021 Parent-Student Handbook Pandemic Addendum. Is there a motion? Motion by Vicky, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kim, any discussion? The only thing, I know this, but I'm just going to say it out loud. You seeked legal counsel for the pandemic addendum to make sure that all the information was legally appropriate.
So, yes, so most of the pandemic response specific to the staff was either from collaboration of districts or directly from legal. So I mean, as far as overall approval, we did not get the 100% stamp at the end. We can if you're interested in that, but it's very it was directly from them. As far as the student handbook, we have not officially put that through legal, but it is right in conjunction with other schools. So we can.
Okay. I would say the only concern that I have legally would be the pandemic.
Yes.
And so I know you've been working with legal
Yes, we
counsel
have.
for that.
Yep.
So that was really that the handbooks there, it's all pretty much regulated by the state. So there are no surprises there.
Right.
We now have Marina on. Hello, Marina.
Hi,
Can
Marina.
you hear us? Oh, can you hear us, Marina? Marina?
She's trying to.
She's trying to get the line, I think.
Okay.
And I think like
I can't hear anything.
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Heard you. The whisper.
technical difficulties is basically just the schedule and saying no visitors to the building, so it doesn't look like it's anything legally.
It's not, not
I
a
mean, it's
major.
just saying we're not doing field trips.
Yep,
And, I mean, there's more in the employee one,
correct. A
On
lot
things?
more.
Right.
and the family first and that sort, but this one really just seems like,
Well, face masks required, for example, I wanted to make sure that that was something that we could legally do and we can,
Yes, we
because
can.
we are offering a virtual option, so that is something.
Yep. There was some gray area, especially at the beginning.
Yes.
It's become more and more clear as we go forward. Things that we have major questions on have been, they've worked through the process now. I'm sure there will be changes as we move forward, but as of right now, everything's where we feel it should be.
Did you have anything else?
no.
Anybody else? Marina, did you have any, do you have any discussion or any questions about item G?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right, with that, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 2020-21 revised school calendar, motion to approve the 2020-21 revised school calendar. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ken, second.
Second.
Second by Vicky. Any discussion? Do you want to just, I mean, it's pretty simple, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we talked about this at the last board meeting for discussion, just talking about going in and seeking some feedback. We did receive some feedback from the staff, and they wanted to add the day, if we were going to flex, add the day to the April vacation days that were in there already, and then also to add the in-service to March, which really made a lot of sense since there was not a non-student contact day throughout the entire month of March. So it really is going to be a nice breakup of days at that point. So, but yeah, pretty straightforward with it. Again, we talked about the need that it's not necessary for fair day at this point. And then the Monday following was through the diagnostics of the original assessments, and we are not going to have that information at that time.
So it's just a regular class.
Yep.
Day.
So the 18th and 21st will be.
Student contact days. Yep.
And then I saw that in there that there was a makeup day for weather. Since there's a virtual option, will we need a makeup day?
We will probably not. That was in the original calendar, so we just chose to bounce that day one day forward to keep the original calendar.
Okay,
Odds of us using that are very, very small.
okay. Any other discussion? No? With that, motion to approve, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that.
Angie,
Yes.
I'm just gonna pause a second and try to figure out why
we do have someone calling in too, but I think we've, I'm just gonna end. No, I don't know who that is.
the inmate.
This is Matt. I'm on now.
Oh,
Okay.
Matt's on.
Hi, Matt.
Cool. I'm not.
Okay, then
It's a YouTube we're not on.
we're not on YouTube right now for some reason.
I'm just gonna pull it down real quick. How do you do that?
We're gonna press pause for a second.
Matt?
Experiencing some technical difficulties.
Matt, to catch you up, we are now on item F, 2020-21 fall sports plan,
All right.
but we're on pause for a moment.
Sounds good. Thanks.
We'll be able to put it up on YouTube, it's just not live.
Mhm.
Okay,
So I
What
think,
is that account?
I don't know that it's Brokeberry Schools at gmail.com. Problem is, I won't have the copy.
Oh, but we don't have one. So, yeah.
not on there.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna put it on.
Yeah, I know.
But you've already stopped it.
Well, I can just do that.
Yeah, I do actually.
Let's just
So,
do
and it just
it.
We can try.
How about, you know what, we can.
Yep, we can go back there. Yep,
To that.
that's fine.
Okay,
That's fine. We can cut
All right.
on it right now. Then.
okay. Because I think it fits under that.
And I can download
Well,
it.
we revised quite a bit, and
Yep.
and that we can make that work. I apologize for that.
No, no, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Understood.
noticing.
Yeah. Isn't that good to go now?
Matt, you can hear us, correct?
Yes.
Are we ready now? No? Is that
Want to
okay?
get off YouTube?
He gave us a thumbs up, but it was
Okay, but we don't want to be in YouTube.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm on YouTube. Where?
Or on the,
Well, now I need to, my voice, gotta fix it. All right.
It's not my computer, so I don't know what I'm hitting.
So are we good?
Yes. Now we
Okay,
have 2
so
minutes.
hold on one second, Eric. So we're gonna go back to 2020-21 revised school calendar. I know we've approved it and everything, but there were a couple of other items that Tom wanted to share with us.
Yep.
Under that heading, so.
Yeah, just to give a few updates on some of the communication that has gone out for the back to school plan, which is part of the calendar. So that's what we're going to be talking about now. So specifically with communication this week, we had to make some really tough decisions. Let's start with the self-check of parents that are going to be self-checking their students that came directly from DHS and CDC that modified their guidelines last week, Wednesday. So the thought behind it, according to DHS, was that if we are not saying that parents and caregivers have that responsibility, then they're getting on buses and that they're already coming here and lining up for something like temperature checks and exposing others if we do not have that expectation. We can always add in more checks as we go, but that was the direct recommendation from DHS. So we will move forward with that with parent and guardian or caregiver self-checks before you either put your kid on the bus or drop them off at school. And so that was sent out with links to the CDC's guidelines for just how that happens. So checking temperature, making sure that they don't have nausea or any other symptoms that could be associated with it, new or worsening cough, etc. Any questions on that?
Now, this is also under the pandemic agenda.
Yep.
It also falls under that
Yep.
category. So.
Yes. Food service, we are going to be able to offer meals to students that are experiencing the virtual option or students in 7 through 12 on their 3 days of virtual learning. We are working on gathering the info for that. So the way that would work, for sure, we're not going to be able to offer delivery as we were in the summer. And so we are trying to be very clear on that it is not just a continuation of that summer program. They're 2 completely different programs. So this would be subject to any cost that would normally be subject to a family if we were serving them food. So if they're on free or reduced lunch, that's different. But at this point, it would be following the federal lunch program versus the summer lunch program, which again are 2 completely different things. So we are compiling a survey for that, but we do have quite a few changes still happening between in-person and virtual, or here's the group that they're going with. So we're still working on that, and we will be sending out a survey very shortly. But again, those changes will be happening up to 2 weeks into the school year before we have definite numbers on that.
So will those meals be available Monday when school starts, or those
Tuesday?
Or Tuesday?
We are still working on that. Mike, have you talked with Christy today yet about that? Yeah. I do not have an answer for that right now. We were working on that to see if that would be a possibility, and we'll communicate that out once we have that.
And not to put John or Jason on the spot, but even Tuesday for those 7 through 12 attending virtually, that would be a hard thing to have lined up going in on that first day. Because we're not going to have them here a day before that. Right.
So maybe there'll be notification that goes out that first week that it won't start the first week of school.
We can definitely look into that. Yep.
Start the second week of school.
Technically, the B group is not virtual Tuesday, Wednesday. They're not virtual till the next
For the first day of
Tuesday.
school. Yep.
Christy's working on logistics. It might not be an everyday pickup. It might be a once a week pickup.
Sure.
Yep.
Even if they pick up on Wednesday, it would be for the following Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Sure.
for the days that they're home.
Sure. I'm just wanting to make sure that whatever's decided is just being sent out.
Yep. Yeah, and another decision that was a very difficult decision was to have no in-town pickups, at least to start the year. And so that decision was made for a variety of reasons. The main reason is with our ridership, we are really trying to keep our busing numbers to one per seat, one family per seat. And with the numbers that did come back, what we don't know is, these families that signed up for transportation, are they really going to use it? Because this happens every year, where families sign up for transportation and they either find an alternative, or they want to make sure that you're ready to pick them up on the few days that they need that pickup service. So we've had multiple students where they got picked up twice last year, but they still counted on that route. So we're looking at what those numbers are actually going to come back at, and we will not know that until after the first few days. And then we can reorganize. So I do apologize for it being late notice, but the alternative to this right now would have been fill the bus, go and drive back to the bus garage to do your sanitizing that we are doing in between each use. So every time somebody sits in that seat, the seat will be sanitized before somebody else comes and sits in that seat. And then go out and get the other students. So either we start routes extremely early and then we have students here waiting before school starts, maybe a pass building, sitting out, either outside, or they're in a congregated area inside, which is not ideal right now. Or we're going to have to go out and then grab those other kids at a later time, which again is not ideal for missing school. So
And that's
go ahead.
To get to school.
Yeah. Yes.
Totally opposite, more challenging after school.
It is.
As you're loading buses, you get them full, you start sending them out. I mean, or do you wait until, and we just don't have enough drivers to run just an in-town route.
Right.
You have the buses. We don't have the drivers.
And we are one driver short, so we're still looking for a driver. So if anybody knows any drivers, let me know. So again, that was definitely a very difficult decision. Hopefully, very shortly, we will be able to reevaluate and reestablish some in-town routes or in-town sites to pick up. We are looking into, and we have not been able to coordinate quite at this point, into crossing guards at the high traffic points, especially crossing that highway. That is a very busy stretch. So we're looking into that, but we have not been able to nail down a final decision on that yet. Any questions on that?
You had also mentioned an assessment when we start school, and I know that's not going to start right away. Number one, it's just going to be a very unusual time, and I don't know that they'll be able to assess appropriately because of, it's always more hectic the first day.
Yes.
I will ask, do you need, for example, like board members the first week of school to assist you outside in any way? Not gonna, if that is something that we could be of any assistance, just because children needing to go in other locations, we mask, we don't go inside. If that's something you want, please let us know.
We will let you know. Yep.
Okay.
We'll talk about it and let you know. Yep. Thank you for that offer. And what I will say is that I just want to thank the community, thank the board, thank the administration and teachers and the whole staff for being patient in this process. This is tough. Going through every decision affects other groups of people, and every decision it has this domino effect. And so we've been trying to really evaluate, from the 10,000-foot view, what's the best choice for the district right now. And again, that may change as we move forward, but we did have to make that decision right now. If we had more drivers, or if we had more time, in the AM and the PM to do that, we would. But at this point in time, we just cannot offer that.
My only other thought on that is the communication out. So I know it went out in the email.
Yes.
But other forms of communication on it. I'm just afraid that there's a chunk of folks that use in-town pickups that may not open Skyward emails.
Yep.
And
We can definitely put something out on Facebook and on Twitter. Would you want us to do maybe a text as well?
I just think it's a big thing. I mean, I think it's either going through those bus cards and calling those in the past that have marked as a city rider.
Yep.
Or that's, otherwise they could be sitting at the bus stop on Tuesday.
Right.
route. If nobody's told them that lunch is provided to them, they're gonna make their own meal. But transportation to school,
Yep.
I think is a big piece.
I think in the past, if you were gonna ride the city, you were to have a card filled
Yes.
out.
Yep.
And we have not received any cards back. So no, I mean, if that was the decision that we would have used to know that they were gonna ride, they should know that they didn't do a card.
But did any
Potentially, yeah.
rural people fill out a card?
No,
Right, so, like, that's the difference. Normally, we got the cards at
Not for
the
rural.
school night. Rural
not for
people don't.
rural. Rural didn't fill out the card.
So we always, I just remember from growing up, when my kids rode the city bus, we got the cards at back to school night.
Yep.
And filled them out then and turned them into the office the first day of actual school.
Mhm.
So.
Yep.
That's, it wasn't something that was done in June or July.
It was still later. Yeah, it was later.
So
Yeah.
that's just my,
Absolutely.
I think that it would be a good thing to get out as much as.
Yep. And I think, again, starting with that why, it's not the choice we want to make, but it's one that we have to at this point.
And also, it's said this a million times, there's going to be a constant assessment as we go forward, but each time, everything's just going to have to be communicated at a million levels as soon as you know something.
Yep.
Whatever that might be.
Absolutely.
Was there anything else?
Any other questions?
Do we have a procedure in place? And you may have talked about it. I'm having a harder time hearing on the Zoom versus the phone. But do we have a process in place for the kids that would walk from the elementary school over to the high school to meet a sibling? We've done that in the past.
I know that the principals have been discussing it over the last week. I'm not sure exactly. Did you guys come to a final answer with that one or not yet?
Not quite yet. We've talked about it. If maybe if you hey, as we're filling out our supervision schedule, figuring it out, hey, what about this? Oh, didn't know about that. Quick, as Jason done. So we'll all that and pick up, drop off at the elementaries on my plate for tomorrow to get information out.
Get it out.
Some of those details.
Sometimes there's teachers who have children as well.
Yeah.
So not just siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure you do that too.
Good question, Matt. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. All right, with that, we will go to item F, 2020-21 fall sports plan. Typically we have to have a motion and a second in order for there to be discussion. Does this say, okay, so I have
Share
to,
the plan first, and then before we can ask questions, we have to.
well, usually though, you have to, and we've been given the plan, you have to have a motion and a second before you can have the discussion. So
We can always amend
and
the
we
motion.
Right,
amend
you can
it.
always
Okay.
amend it.
All right, I just want everyone to know
Yep.
that's why this is the process. So is there a motion to approve the 2020-21 fall sports plan?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Eric, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, please come up.
Right up front. And I know you've had a lot of meetings about this, and thank you for the detail and angst that you've gone through.
You want the presentation up there, or do you want us to look?
Presentation.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Like you said, we spent a lot of time working on this. I feel like we have a good plan. I feel like we're ready. I just wanted to kind of talk you through it. Just to give you kind of a background and where we've been. As of July 1st, I feel like we developed a very detailed plan as far as an opportunity to open our weight room, open our gyms. We worked with the county health department. We worked with our custodians. And started having kids come in July. We did daily temperature checks along with symptoms questionnaire. We had a checklist that we filled out and thought it went really well. We stayed in pods. We had kids schedule 1-hour sessions. We had volleyball, we had basketball, and some gymnastics. And sorry, I forgot to introduce Dwayne. Dwayne is with me as well, head football coach, and he's also our strength coach.
So Dwayne, I don't know you, so I'm going to ask for you to come up. I mean, why should Eric have all the glory?
He's my moral support. So.
Yeah.
So if you don't
So-
mind introducing yourself.
Join Skleski, by a teacher, football coach, weight room supervisor. That's about it.
Thank you for coming. I'm Angie. Do you know all of us? Probably not.
Yeah, I'd say I watched a few of the meetings and.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And I'd say we averaged around 30 kids a day in the weight room. We sanitized equipment between sessions, and we had the custodians use the sprayer and did nightly sanitizing of the whole room and all of the equipment every night. And we felt like it worked out really well. Also in July, we had our football contact days. They were outside. We had 25 to 30 kids there. It was our first real group of kids get together, and it was nice. It was really nice. We focused on individual skills. We also had a volleyball camp that we split locations, so we had part of them in the high school, part of them in the middle school, just to keep our numbers low. And that went well. And then basketball, open gyms, and gymnastics, they've had limited kids come in, working on skill development and staying with individual skill work. So that was July. August 1st, obviously we had the mask mandate come out. Since then, indoors and outdoors, when we were unable to maintain our social distance, we've had kids working out in masks. We've had volleyball players working out in masks, and in the weight room as well, and we've had really no issues with it. So it's been really good. August 14th, the WI Board of Control approved the current plan. In that plan was the delayed start of football and volleyball. Also, they shortened all 3 seasons. So they shortened the fall, they shortened the winter, and the spring. What that means for me, basically, I have to fix 30 schedules. It's going to be challenging. It's about a year's worth of work that we need to kind of redo. Then they also presented the alternate fall option, which is the window that they opened up at the end of February going into March and April, allowing fall sports to move into that window if they chose to. And I'll have a calendar that'll show that in another slide here. They also announced modified postseason, if any. At this point, they're not predicting any, but I think they'd like to have something. And they're going to make an announcement 30 days before that scheduled date. So that's to be seen, I guess, at this point. And then they also released the sports-specific considerations and modifications, and that was in that link of the document that we shared with you, all the sports, individual sports modifications. Since March, we've logged over 50 hours of Zoom meetings with dually AD, state, and even national AD meetings. I feel like we've worked on options, plans, and I've had frequent meetings with the school administration, and we've shared and discussed all of our plans with, up to this point, with the Vernon County Health Department. So I feel like we've done a lot of prep to get to this point. So why are we proposing fall rather than the alternate schedule? Number one, there's a considerable overlap, and I'll show you that overlap again in another slide. That overlap creates issues with athletes going from one sport directly to another. In the spring and the fall alternative option, there's a 2 or 3 week overlap where there's sports going on at the same time. And it also creates, we have coaches that coach both of those sports. So that becomes an issue. And it creates transportation issues for sure. We already struggle with transportation at times. Having 6 or 7 sports going on at one time rather than 3 or 4 creates issues. Obviously, we have the uncertainty of field conditions and temperatures, and I have a slide to show you that as well. Trying to play football in March could be a real challenge here. There's a lot of times where at the end of March we still have snow on our fields, so that becomes a challenge. You know, we looked at Vernon County case rates. You know, do we know that it will improve the end of February compared to where we are now? Or will it be worse? I don't think we can predict that. So I think we look at where our county is right now, and we have to take that into consideration that, you know, Vernon County has done pretty well compared to many areas in the state of Wisconsin. Number 4, the ability to start and then move if needed. So basically, if we start in the fall with football, volleyball, any of our sports, there's a cutoff where we can get a certain percentage of that season in. And if things go wrong or things go badly and we need to go virtual or we need to shut down, we can then move to the spring. So it leaves both options open. If we choose now to go to the spring, we're there, and we can't. You know, you give yourself only one option. Number 5, the mental, emotional, and physical benefits of getting kids involved now. A lot of these kids have been in their houses since February. And we feel that it's important to get them out, get them active and involved with their teammates as quickly as we can. And WI gave a lot of different statistics and a lot of information about the mental health of young students at this time. And then number 6, the availability of teams willing to compete now compared to alternative dates. And this changes. If I would, daily would not be the correct. It changes by the minute. You know, we know now kind of as of today what we have available. It changes a lot. There are a variety of schools that have chosen, and you can see that up here, to go to the spring. But I think right now we have our best option of opportunities are in the fall. What others are doing for football in the Cooley, it's split. GT, Arcadia, and Black River have moved to the spring. Viroqua.
Hold on 1 second.
They're still off. It's
Okay.
They're fine.
it's
Okay.
fine.
I just have to put my glasses on. Viroqua, Westby, Aquinas, Luther, West Salem, at this point for football are all still in the fall. All other fall sports in the Cooley Conference are in the fall still. No one has completely moved all of their teams to the spring. In our area, it depends on the day. It really does. The Scenic Bluffs, according to 2 hours ago, had moved their sports to the spring. Now some of them have moved their cross country back to the fall. And I've also heard that one school has chosen to go all of their sports in the fall. So like I said, it literally is changing by the day. The Ridge and Valley, which is to our south, they're pretty split. Some of the schools are going in the fall, some are going in the spring. The Mississippi Valley, which includes the lacrosse schools, Holman, Alaska, they are very much split, almost right down the middle, with about half and half. The Dairyland Conference is in the fall, and the SWC and the SWAL, which are to our south, are very much split as well. So there's not a lot of conferences right now that are going all in on or sticking together. September 1st is our declared date for your season, but it's not set in stone. They want you to declare what you're going to do by September 1st, but you're still flexible to change it. And the reason they want is for scheduling, just to kind of see where everybody's at. It's obviously an ever-changing situation. It changes every day, and we are prepared, you know, to make any changes or pivot as we're needed. Yeah, nothing.
We're following you.
Yeah, you're all right.
Well, I had a couple of charts to show you, but I won't show you.
A couple of them might have that. I don't know if they have a copy of it or not.
The presentation's on there. It will be shared with you.
So basically, I had the calendar, which I was going to show you, where that fits in. It would be better to see on the screen, but it does show the overlap of the dates. So this would be our fall, winter, and then this is that alternate schedule by the spring. And the box here, the rectangle, kind of shows the crossover between the seasons. I'll try to get that up, and I can share the whole presentation with you as well, so that you can see those exact dates.
So hold on a second. Are the other board members still with us, or did we lose them?
They are still, I'm sorry, they are still,
They can still hear us?
We can't hear them.
I'm sorry, Eric.
guys.
Yep, we apologize here. They changed their system up today and we're just figuring it out.
Why should today be different than any other?
Yeah.
Welcome to 2020, guys.
This is not an easy.
No, I just, I want
Yeah.
the other board members to hear, yeah, as much as possible.
Got that on the election.
Exactly. Hi, Angie.
Now it's all.
I don't know what they're doing.
I can.
If you hit it, I find it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Fix it. Hi, Kathy.
A little technical difficulty.
Yep, sorry about this, guys.
Hey, it's fine.
Did you try to restart, right, Vicky?
Do you really want me to try?
There we go.
One more thing, guys.
Hey, Matt, can you hear us? Excellent. You didn't miss anything.
Yep.
Oh, you guys missed a lot on this end. It was crazy.
And then we have Marina.
I don't know if she's gonna come back.
Okay.
Okay, so this kind of shows you the calendar. The green on the far left is the fall. This is our regular winter season, which has been shortened. There's this, 2 weeks later, and the season has also been shortened at the end of the winter season. And then this is the alternate fall. And here's the crossover at the beginning, which isn't too bad, but they would be going directly from one date into the other. But there is about a 3-week crossover between the spring and the alternate fall. And then this is just in March. Our average temperatures in March are, I experienced 45 degrees, which is pretty chilly, and the ground is pretty much frozen for most of March. And the average 5 inches of snow as well. So that's the challenge of trying to create that alternate fall season. Go ahead, Mike. So this is the cutoff. So basically, if you get started with a fall season in the regular fall, this is the cutoff for when it counts as a complete season. Okay, so basically for cross country, if you get 6 weeks of the season in or 6 competitions, that would then count for your entire season. You would not be able to move to the spring. If you had less than that, then you could move and finish up your season in that spring window. Football, it's 6 weeks or 4 games. Tennis is 5. Volleyball is 5 weeks as well. So that just kind of shows you what the threshold is. You know, in our mind, if volleyball and football got a majority of their season in somewhere around that 4 or 5 games, I don't know that we would move. But we would see. We would make that decision if we had to. Okay.
So Erica has soccer on there. Now we have club soccer. How does that fit? Or is that
Basically, it fits in us allowing them to use our facility during that time. I have been in communication with them. They get all of my athletic emails that I send out. And their plan as of right now is to start following the WI regulations. So that's the communication I've had with them. So what can we do to provide the safest opportunity to participate? Like I said, during our strength and conditioning this summer, we did temperature checks and our daily symptoms checklist. We would be willing to do that, but again, we will also follow the school's recommendation on that. All schools are requesting confirmation of temperature checks and symptoms before you leave for an event. So basically how it would work is we would check our players' temperatures before they get on the bus. We would go through our symptoms checklist with all of our players, and then we would just send them a confirmation, yes, we checked. We have this many players we checked, and everybody is clear. And that is an expectation throughout our conference. We have worked with our coaches and will continue to, and our athletic trainer, to implement appropriate practice planning and event hosting. We ask players and families to act responsibly. You know, we're going to ask those players to avoid mass gatherings, wear a mask when they can't social distance, and stay home if they're not feeling well. You know, they gotta all kind of be in the same mindset of we all got to kind of be on the same plan so that we can make this successful. You know, we're going to follow the plans and guidelines, and that's the link that I had sent you earlier. We'll follow the DHS, the WI guidelines, and our school guidelines as far as an exposure, if there is an exposure to an athlete or a coach, and follow the procedures given by the WI as far as medical clearance, event considerations, and sports-specific considerations. We have allowed parents to transport to some of the events just to lessen the number of people on the bus. So that kind of takes our load off of some of those buses. Those who are riding the bus are required to wear a mask, and we will not be stopping. We've already kind of made that clear. So there is no stop at Quick Trip or stop at McDonald's. It's straight home. And then also the WIA's talked about this, officials will be masked and they have electronic whistles that they'll be using this year as well. So the low risk sports, basically the WI has broken them into low risk and high risk. Low risk is boys and girls cross country, girls tennis and girls golf, which we're going to co-op with Westby. Those sports are going right now. We've competed in some of them already. Things that we're doing, all of those sports are outside. They're able to consistently social distance. They're wearing masks when they're unable to social distance, not sharing water bottles. They're frequently hand sanitizing. Cross country, they're modifying the starts and finishes of those races. We've reduced the schedules and the travel for cross country especially. We have basically have created a conference only schedule in concept. There are a couple of other local teams in a couple of those meets, but a majority of those meets are conference only. So there'll be small meets. They're doing wave starts. They're doing a lot of different creative ways to keep the kids from that massive herd that you're used to seeing at a cross country race in the beginning. They have talked about using a gator style mask at the start. Once they get to a certain flag, pulling the mask down, and then also pulling it up at the finish line. And then we're frequently disinfecting any shared equipment. And I just put on there, I feel very comfortable with the progress of those sports. They're going on now with the modifications that we've made, and I feel pretty good about them. Then on to the higher risk sports. Volleyball is the first one. Volleyball, we're following the mask mandate at this point. If you're inside, you need to have a mask on. So they would be, and this would not be until September 7th. So they would not be, if they're in the building, they have a mask on, social distance when they're not participating in activity, frequent hand sanitizing after drills. We're going to limit our team scrimmaging, more individual work, limited or social distance locker rooms, which will be used by home schools only. So if a team comes here, they would not be going into our locker rooms. They would come dressed for the game. Some schools are considering a net barrier, and I haven't seen it yet, but there is a plastic covering that some schools are considering putting over the net, just as a shield between the two teams. And we're using frequent cleaning of personal equipment. As far as competitions, we have reduced our schedule. Normally they would play each conference team twice. We've cut that in half, so there's basically 6 games. We've gotten out of all the multi-school events. 4 games, teams would provide their own balls, so you'd be warming up with your volleyballs with your team, then the other team would use theirs when they warm up. They would have 3 to 5 game balls that they would rotate in during the game, so every time a ball goes out, they would throw a fresh one in, sanitize that ball, and have it ready to come in again. Teams would follow the mask mandate at this point. No switching sides or benches, so a team would be on a side and normally after each set, you'd switch sides. They will not be doing that. No shared water bottles, and we are coming up with shared guidelines as far as the conference, and these will be consistent throughout the conference. And that's a document that I can share with you when it's complete, and it's nearly complete at this point. But it would be guidelines that everyone would be expected to follow. Football, we follow the mask mandate, social distance when not participating in activity, frequent hand sanitizing after drills, limiting team scrimmage, work on individual skills as much as you can, limited or social distance locker room use, frequent cleaning of personal equipment again. Players would wear approved gloves. That is one way of protecting ourselves. We have ordered, and I'll show you on a slide in just a moment, we have ordered approved face shields, and they are a top and bottom shield. So the entire face mask from the inside would be covered with a plastic shield. And we would also be willing to explore the possibility of wearing a cloth face mask underneath that if we had to. So it would be a lot, but it's something that could be done. No shared water bottles. Competition considerations. It's a reduced schedule. It would be 7 or less games. It should say not less than 7, but it should be 7 or less. We would stay as local as possible, but I don't know what that means because it changes every day. So we would do the best we can to identify the best places for us and obviously not put our players at risk. You want to switch? Here's a picture of the splash shield. And this is approved by the NFHS, and these are on order right now, but it is a shield that goes on the bottom and the top of the face mask.
Will other schools be using those?
I'm sorry?
Will other schools be using those also?
I am unaware, I would assume. Okay. And then this is obviously the one topic that we need to discuss as well as fans. As of right now, the Cooley Conference for volleyball has decided that we're going to start the season with no fans. And then reassess it as we approach the season or as the season progresses. But at this point, that is our stance. If we're not allowed to have visitors into school, we're probably not going to bring opposing visitors into our school. Outdoor, the discussion is ongoing. Some are recommending masks and social distancing, reducing availability, closing bleacher access. It's a decision that we're all going to have to make based on our county's health department recommendations, your recommendation, and the administration's recommendation. I just put options to consider, things that we can do. We could limit the number of tickets. We would think about free admissions so that we're not having that transfer of money and the face-to-face contact. The one question I have is we need to think about the ability to restrict. You know, if we're saying we're not going to allow people to come to a football game, how are we going to restrict that? Because it is a large area. There is a public street that goes along the football field with private property next to the football field. So I'm not sure how we restrict some of that other than shutting down a large area of the town. Or an option could be parents only. We do have the ability to live stream. We did that last year and through our tech ed class, and Tyler Gabrielson does a great job with it. It's really well done. He puts a scoreboard on there. It's very nice. And we will continue to do that. And games will also be broadcast through Western Wisconsin Video Production, which I believe is through Vernon Communications. I believe that's correct.
Is that for all, is that for everything? Is that for cross country and volleyball and all of the athletic events?
I don't know. Cross country, we would not be able to.
Okay, like a beginning or end or nothing like that?
It's possible. It's possible. Those would be for our home. So as of this point for cross country, we have one event at home, which would be the end of October. It's definitely something we could explore. We have the ability to.
Okay. There's also
maybe not live, but maybe after that, because it is at the fairgrounds.
Exactly. There's also the what are they called? They wear them on their head. They video
GoPro.
Everything. Pardon me?
Sure.
GoPro.
We'd be open to any.
I mean, there might be a student that would like to wear that. I don't know.
So my recommendation would be to follow the conference guidelines that we're working on with the administrators to develop as far as fans, but I know that's something that you want to discuss.
So I want to discuss it, and I'm going to tell you why. All right. Can you hear me, Matt? Matt, can you hear me?
Yeah, you put it on.
So we have events that are allowing no fans. And I don't see why a high school should have fans and our professionals don't. There's also the inability, so where are they going to go to the bathroom? How are we going to clean the bathroom? How are we going to sanitize it? How are we going to control people going in and out of those spaces? And I don't see how we can do that safely. If a family member, if they can contract trace a family member coming to our school or one of our, whomever we have in the fans going to another school, and they contract COVID, the liability for us is that we have held an event when professional athletes and professional sports are not allowing any fans, and yet we allow fans to go to West Salem or wherever, where the numbers are very different than in our county, we're making a decision that we are then accountable for if someone in the stands.
I don't think we
Yes,
can
sir.
control them going to the other games though.
We cannot have our team travel to another.
Well, no, we cannot have our
place.
team travel, but I don't think we can control, let's just say West Salem decides they're gonna allow fans, I'm just
Right.
making up a.
Right.
We can't control our parents and our fans.
Right.
Nor do I think we should. I mean, I think
We can
that's-
recommend, but we can't say, legally, we can't say you can't go. It's not, our grounds, we can do anything,
Right.
but we can't say that for an away game. For our grounds, I think that's what we should focus our discussion on. I mean, I'm happy to hear volleyball, the conference is saying no.
Yep.
Volleyball is right there. I think that's an easy discussion. That's an easy
Well, it's indoor.
go with
It's
it,
inside.
indoors, go with it.
It's
I think
inside.
football, the discussion is, even if we don't allow fans, which I am in favor of, what's our protocol for all around the stadium?
So there's another piece also to fans. So I mentioned the liability, I mentioned bathrooms, obviously people going in and out of any opening. There's also, if someone comes to you, and we're putting our administrators in a position that they have to tell someone to leave if they won't wear a mask. And there are plenty of people that don't want to wear masks for a variety of reasons. We are putting them in a situation that could escalate to a pretty uncomfortable level, as well as if Eric comes to me and says, Angie, or you have to have a mask on, and I say to him, I have a medical condition. What are you going to do? Because that's what's happening. It's happening at Walmart. It's happening at the Agri Center. It's happening. I have said to someone, they wear a mask, walk in, and then they take it off. And I have said, you have just taken off the mask and it's mandatory. And they said to me, and it's happened multiple times, I have a health condition. And I have then said, you should be ordering online. So we're putting them in a position that I think is not fair to them and could cause a problem. And the police have said that they will not come if there is a mask issue. So you don't have police then.
They won't come and force it, but if you're having an issue, they will come to protect, yes, like.
But they won't enforce it. So what are you going to do?
Right, that's
But
what I'm
they
saying,
won't
like, they won't say, like, I'm gonna write you a ticket for not wearing a mask, but they will if you have somebody, and if you have a disorderly going on, they'll remove the person from the premises because of a disorderly, not because they're not wearing a mask.
And here's the issue, guys, I'm not sure we disagree that we should even allow spectators. I'm not sure, maybe we should ask that question first, because if we're not in disagreement that there should be, I am in agreement, it is impossible to enforce whatever. We will be videotaping our games. You can see just as good. I'm all for no fans. I think our bigger discussion is the surrounding area needing to decide what we're going to do, because part of that, the backside, we don't have any control over.
So first of all, I think the discussion needs to be, are we in agreement that we will not have fans at home events? Let's start with that. And I'm going to say, I don't think we should have
Are you
fans at
talking
home
indoor
events.
and,
Well, he already said indoor is done. Indoor is not. There's already no fans.
right?
Right
So
now.
they-
Right now. Well, and anything can change tomorrow. As of right now, it's no fans. So I say no fans for any athletic event right now. That's what I, Matt?
I'm thinking I'm
torn on this one. For outdoor, that I think we could social distance. We just had a graduation where we did allow spectators at, and we restricted it to family only or something along those lines. I don't know if you're going to create a bigger problem by just canceling all spectators. I think there's something that we could do to allow some spectators at the games.
Okay, what do you think, Vicki?
Kind of feel like Matt, I just got an email about going to a cross country in Cashton where there were spectators were expected to wear masks. You know, that's mask up, social distance. But there is nothing saying I can't go to Cashton.
Great.
And I plan to like go watch my kid run, you know, and I'm transporting her and taking her home to try to reduce the bus.
But part of that also, I'm sorry,
Oh,
but
no,
part of
go
that
ahead.
also is if in that situation, if we're asking parents to help us transport, and now you're not going to let them come to the meet, that's an issue.
It
You know,
is an issue.
if you're asking, in my mind, there's separation. So if we're talking about, I don't know that you can lump them all together.
Mhm.
You know, girls tennis, we're probably talking about maybe 10 or 15 parents at a girls tennis match outside.
So it's easy to social distance.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's very easy to social distance.
You're
Cro-
barely even allowed.
Cross country,
naturally.
cross country, you've got a 3-mile course to spread out on.
Now, with that said, Eric, like the tennis, we could hold the bleachers,
Yeah, bleachers can be gone easily.
you know, and just get those out there. So
I
that
think-
of course, it's not-
I think
Yeah.
at times the kids use those, but they easily get moved out of there so that they are not accessible.
Okay. And golf.
Golf, I think you have minimal spectators.
Very minimal spectators at golf.
We have, and golf really is not, it's run by Westby. And I don't believe we have any girls from Viroqua on the team at this point. Coached by a person from Viroqua.
So my only concern was, I don't want to discriminate in any way an activity.
So-
But I agree with you.
so-
Those are different.
So for football, I would completely at this point support closing off the bleachers and closing off access to the building. You know, there's nothing that says we have to provide a bathroom for somebody.
Really?
Or I guess I could put a porta potty out there. If you
Oh,
need
that's
to.
worse.
There are,
They're going to go
As
around
long as people know.
the outside. We're gonna go on that hill and watch.
Right.
We're gonna go into the labs front.
Well, it would
That's what I'm.
I have a feeling that
Football's
if,
hard.
if you made that decision, that we may be the only one thing that people would be able to go to every other game except for
Right.
the one in Viroqua. I think if they're not allowed to go into the bleachers, I think people have the ability to spread out on the hillside, along the fence, along.
There were
all-
people on the hillside graduation.
There was, and we did not tell them that they could not.
But they were very spread out.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, it was a family pod, but that,
And that's what you're gonna see with this.
So you're gonna close off.
but he could.
I could, I'm just saying that could
He's
be a
saying
solution
we
to
could
it.
decide that.
Amanda?
I say that I go with the preference of indoor closed, indoor building, but I'm not able of outdoor sport busing. I think that part of it is, I don't think that it is my job to tell somebody that how their feelings on being sitting next to their brother at a football game. You can't do that. You have to social distance, or you can't do this. If they feel safe to come and put themselves in a situation outdoors, that's them choosing to do that. I could go and watch, and and people over there, I just distance from them. So I think that we have plenty of yard space that people can bring lawn chairs, they can sit on blankets, they can do whatever they want to do I don't see why we would close down our outdoor facilities for spectators. I am fine with the bleachers and the bathrooms. The food, I'm sure that the football club isn't planning on having food
We're not doing
anyways.
concessions, I've already told the Booster Club that we're not.
Right, so we don't have to collect money, I mean, that's not collecting money, but to allow them to come to an outside, whether it's cross-country, tennis, golf or football, I think that just shutting down, I mean, that's an easy lockable gate to shut down the bleachers. And then where people choose to sit, I mean, I don't think you have to have somebody walking around and saying, you guys need to move away from each other,
But it's school property.
Right, but I think if you clearly post the rules, I don't think you have to walk around to try and enforce those rules. That's a reasonable expectation. If the rules are posted, that you need to social distance, that whatever we decide the rules are, that they do have an obligation to follow them, just like when they come into the building. Now, it doesn't mean you're gonna have problems. You may very well have problems. But we could have problems just for people coming to a game when it's not. This scenario.
But you could easily put timing up.
Yeah.
And if you pull the tennis bleachers and
Yeah.
it's consistent to shut down the bleachers to the stadium, and then just put time up thing.
Well, this summer, the Park and Rec, they took the bleachers, they closed the bleachers. They couldn't use the bleachers when they had ball games down there. I mean, closing the bleachers is, to me, is a no-brainer for sure, because people will just,
because they're promoting them congregating together. This, otherwise it's an open hillside and street and whatever, that they choose to sit.
And this is certainly an ongoing discussion of
Yeah.
whether it is.
Yeah.
There's been proposals, the Dairyland came out with a proposal for tickets for athletes that they can have their parents or whoever come. I mean, I don't think anybody at this point is considering just opening the gate and saying, here we go.
I think our field is unique to a lot of places. A lot of places you can't, you literally, you got bleachers on each side, you don't have the hills. We don't have a street on the back. Other places don't have a street on the back. That there is nothing we can do to control that city street unless we petition the city to close the street. Well, I don't know if we could, but I'm just saying there's nothing we can do about that street except to that extreme.
And if I look at, so city council, what they did, they had voted to close play structures, but the park is open, the green space is open. So they didn't close space for people to go, they closed renting a shelter, which has touchable surfaces of picnic tables and not being able to disinfect, and they closed play structures. But the green space has been open. So that's what I feel that's what I'm referring it to, that we're closing those touchable high spots where we're encouraging a larger group congregating, but our green space is open.
So I'm going to say once again, I mean, I get what you're saying, but if something happens and somebody gets sick, I don't know that I can consciously say that we're not following the same regulations as professional sports that are not permitting fans because it's unsafe for their players.
But I think that those are different, because
I don't think football's definitively made that decision for their whole seasons either.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen.
Stadium,
Right.
where they are
Right.
having to
But in the
charge.
stadiums, inside, absolutely.
Right, where they're having to charge, where they're having seating. I mean, they don't
Baseball
have a
has
green
it,
open
so-
space that people can just come up and watch
Right.
and walk. I mean, even Brewers, you have to go through gates.
Well,
I mean, there's
and
tons
the
of
Cubs are still sitting on the rooftop.
But that's not their property.
Correct.
So, but that's where I think that we're different than. big
Yeah, we're not
football.
building a
Plus,
stadium, we're not building a stadium full of 60,000 people.
And they're traveling across state lines, coming from, large things where I mean, our fans probably aren't coming too far to watch football.
If some of these places change their mind, like Arcadia, for example, because Arcadia has much higher numbers than we in that county. West Salem, the lacrosse County has higher numbers. So my only thought here is we are having athletics for our students, and I want our students to have the best experience in the safest environment possible. And as a parent, if I can watch it, and I can watch it live, and that reduces any risk, it just doesn't make sense to me. And this is probably strictly football, because the other sports have so few fans that it's just different. So that's how I think of this. My son loved football so much, and I want these students to have that experience, and I don't want to mess it up because parents didn't follow the regulations, and somebody got sick, and then the kid gets sick, and then the season ends. And so I know I'm being uber conservative here, but I just want everybody to understand my thought process.
That can happen a million different ways that somebody could get it at their job and pass it to their child, or, you know, I mean.
But I don't want to be the reason for it because we had fans. You see what I'm saying? That's different.
But I don't know that.
Well, I think you have to take a look at it as well. Then if you're going to use that same argument and parents can watch a game virtually, then students can also participate in school virtually. And if it's ultimately to keep the kids safe, then we should not allow an in-person school. Because we can't control who's coming in or going out of the school, or who's managing all of the students' interaction with whoever outside of school. So we don't know if they're going to bring that in. With that same argument, I think you're taking a look and it's semantics right now, and trying to manage this, we can't. So we can manage it to the point of keep them as safe as possible, like we're doing with school, but you can have I think you can have the bleachers open. We just had graduation with people in the bleachers. There's a gate to get in there. You limit how many people can come in. Possibly if there's parents from the other school, we can get a pre-list or something like that to say, can we know who's going to show up and how many are going to be there, so we can control that. I think there's more work involved with it, but I think there's a way that we can handle it and do this smartly to still allow at least parents to be in the bleachers, and because part of that kid's experience is having their parents watch their game and to be a part of what they're going through. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
And I'm going to say the difference in my mind is that different counties, if we're in a different county, we might only be having virtual education because our numbers are much higher and we're crossing county lines, whereas one of the reasons we're able to have face-to-face is because our county has numbers that are so low. But if you go to other counties that we're participating or we're competing against, their numbers there's a different exposure because their numbers are higher.
But they're having in-person schools.
I don't know if they are. I don't know when they
that are playing, that are participating fall schools are having some in-person. There's no school that is meeting in the fall that is totally virtual.
And Aquinas is drawing from multiple areas and multiple counties for their students.
Eric, when's our first football game? Hypothetically speaking, September 20th.
I don't know.
Oh, so we have some time to.
We do.
So-
We can approve everything else, and then we can take some time for this issue, because I would say, based on our conversation, I will disagree with Matt about the bleachers, but I think we've got an awful lot of green space
Now, do we want to limit the people that come on that green space also? Do we want no kids under high school age? I don't know, but I think those are things, I don't think we want the little kids running around. We don't want the little boys playing football like they do on the hillside. You know, we don't want any of those things. So I would say, I mean, we have another meeting before then. We can certainly have another special meeting. And that's a long time when numbers could significantly change from where we are today. Can we approve this with the caveat that, you know, for tennis, you'd take out the bleachers, and for football, we would make the decision later, and whoever you're scheduling us against for those home games, make sure they know that the board hasn't made a decision yet and you're not sure if spectators will be allowed.
Not a problem.
Can we do that?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will self-select not to attend. If
I
there's
think so,
no
too.
bleachers and no bathroom and no food. And if I have trouble, you know, sitting on the ground or on my lawn chair for that long, I'm gonna sit at home and watch them.
And some might just say I could do those, but I want to watch it from home.
Right,
So,
but-
I mean.
Right.
And I come to football games for the socialization, so to me, to come to a football game right now,
But,
it's
yeah,
no, I'll watch it on TV.
yeah. I'm not
That's what
gonna
I'll
go out.
do, just because that's what, but the parents might be different.
Yeah. I
But
think
we
so.
can make this decision later, that gives you guys more time. You can see what the people were playing, if they've made a decision. If we approve everything, like we talked about, except spectators at football, does that solve if they take the bleachers away for tennis? Does that solve, Angie, your concerns for right now?
It does.
There would not be any cross-country between now and then.
Well,
So it would just be, it
cross-country,
would literally be
it's-
tennis.
Cross-country is the one, and tennis, yeah, I mean, cross-country is pretty, except for at the begin and the end, that's the only thing, and you're staggering it, there's probably a way, and I don't know where it's gonna begin and end at the fairgrounds and everything.
They've
That
already
might
set
be-
up no congregating at the finish line. And
Right, yeah, some of those things.
Our cross-country coaches have done an outstanding job. They really have. I've met with them several times, the whole Cooley coaches, and they have a good plan.
So I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-21 fall sports plan with the exception of fans at football. How's that?
I'll second that.
So
Does
this
it
is
include,
this is a revised. Oh, no.
Pardon
okay.
me?
Did we make a motion
You've
already?
already made a motion.
So we need to
Yep.
revise that motion, so did I make a motion?
Yep, you made the
That's right.
motion.
Okay, so I will make that motion with the revision of the fans at football will come back for discussion. And I'm saying in that revision that I'm comfortable with the administrators doing the things we discussed for tennis, and then there won't be cross country before then anyway.
So it'd still be the plan as
The
presented.
plan is presented with the
With the
exception of
addendum. of
football
Football.
attendance.
And that will be decided at the next board meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
does this,
And.
I just want to make sure that it includes middle school sports. Because
That hasn't been presented, only the
That's
high
not part of
school.
it?
So as of right now,
That's a modified situation there.
those schedules are gone at this point. So those schedules are in creation because we lost the City Plus for volleyball, which is what we
Where
were
we play a
in.
lot.
So we have no games for volleyball, and all of our cross-country meets for middle school have been canceled.
but they're still
I
practicing or not?
I have had Westby reach out to us. I've talked with our coaches, and we're developing a plan for middle school. I believe that we're probably looking at maybe 2 or 3 local meets for cross-country. Might be us hosting Westby and maybe Brookwood or Cashton or somebody. It's going to be very limited.
But
Or-
that wasn't presented, that was presented with high school.
Right.
So,
Okay, that's what I just
right.
wanted to clarify, because it doesn't say this high school, it just says
No.
return to fall sport.
Middle school athletics do not start until September 7th, and they will not have event until at least. So I don't know if you need something before then.
What
Well-
about football? So I know it's not a rule, it's a park and rec.
As of right now, there is no schedule for them. There's some things in the works, but there's not a set schedule.
So
And
they're
that's
supposed to
not,
start.
That's not ours,
So
so-
that's not
Yeah,
ours.
It's
It's
not
on our
ours, so
grounds.
we can't control it.
They do have games on our grounds.
And practice.
Well, the grounds might be a
Which starts September
consideration,
7th.
but they,
And that would be a discussion about soccer as well.
Which would be similar, so if they're following WIA procedures and the protocol, which is soccer is, so then we should be able to offer that just very similar, in a similar fashion.
so I'm going to say this again, that was not part of the plan that was sent, so we are not voting on that because that's not on
So
our
let's,
agenda.
right, let's focus on the high school plan, and then if we have to bring it back before the first competition, we can, along with
Yep.
the spectators, for football.
And I guess then allowing maybe practices on our field, you have to bring that back, or that's just an ad? Or on our,
Yeah, I think we still have to have that conversation about outside organizations in general. But there are other groups that use facilities all the time. And so we'll talk about that.
So that's not part of this.
Correct.
That will be at a later date. This is just the information that was presented